6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
All right. Well, we'll start and then we'll bring Jen in. So I want to start by saying that we're going to have a change in chairmanship. Joe is going to step down. He's got a lot on his plate, so he's going to regretfully step down.
Abdicate.
Abdicate, yes. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. JP, I had sent you an email earlier about your interest in being the chair of this committee, and you probably didn't get it, but
I just opened it up about 2 minutes ago.
because as I recall,
Thanks for the heads up.
It wasn't a, well, you know, there wasn't a huge groundswell of people who were just dying to be the chair. I cannot be the chair, so that's why I thought, JP, if you wanted to be, it would be logical you introduce to city council. So I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't want to, you don't, it's fine. But I kind of want to put you on the spot. No.
I'm happy to do whatever you need.
Is there anybody else who is just living for the moment to be the chair of this committee? Because I don't want to thwart you either, because it's pretty exciting. All right, JP, why don't we go with you're the chair, and then we'll see how it goes for, if it becomes too daunting, we'll switch it up, or we have rotating
We can always abdicate.
Everybody's wanting to abdicate. Come on.
Come on, be original.
Take the swing. It's fine. No one will get hurt in the operation of this committee. So we're missing Stan Diamond, and we are missing Jen. So, oh, I'm sorry, Joe, you had your hand up?
I will volunteer to take the minutes of this meeting, if that's okay.
Wow, that's your penance. Yes.
Penance, that's right. Plus a few Our Fathers thrown in.
So we don't have Stan, we don't have Jen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we do have a quorum. So we will roll through this if and when they join, that would be great. So we started at like 6. There is one person here from the public. Are you wanting to do anything with public speak? Okay, I'm going to go with no. We had minutes. JP had done the minutes from the last meeting, the meeting from 8/20. Anyone have any changes to that or any concerns? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the minutes of 8/20. Any changes? No. Jay, vote yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Joe? Yes?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Yes, and JP?
JPI.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes, minutes are approved. JP, if you could send those to Barbara and tell her that we approve them, she'll get them up on the website.
I will do so.
Thank you. All right, so old business was the task that we all had from last time we met was to go through the spreadsheet we have of various communities that had implemented this and to find out any information that we could use going forward for our committee. So I think the plan was to kind of go through, probably easier to do it person by person with all the people each individual contacted and what you kind of took away from those meetings and kind of what you learned from those collectively. I'm gonna not start with me. Jay, do you want to talk? You sounded like you had one person you were able to connect with.
That is correct.
Yes.
I am actually just scanning through my Tuesday because she sent a follow-up email, which was extremely helpful. After
What community was it?
It was Norwood.
Okay.
Yeah. So they implemented their program back in 2006. And the initial program was $500. And they moved to when they first implemented it, it was a high interest in participation, and over the years it dwindled off, and then they decided about 5 years ago to increase that to $750. The conversation that town council was, with inflation, two parts of the conversation actually. With inflation, $500 isn't worth what it used to be, but also with the increase of the minimum wage, some of the department heads were finding that the value in $500 worth of volunteering wasn't really worth putting in the effort to come up with the positions and things like that. So,
like administratively, like just writing up the thing, hiring people, all that.
Yeah, for $500 worth of work is not a lot of hours. So, yeah.
And do you have, Jay, like the contact name and email and/or phone number?
Yes. Yes. And I was trying to do this, but from a tablet.
Okay.
So it did not.
If you want to email, I have the thing up now if you want to just tell me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hold on. How did this?
Wait, if it's easier, you can just email it.
Okay, I'll just email it.
Yeah. No, so basically the takeaway was they had it at 500. It wasn't it wasn't really, this juice was not worth the squeeze, as they say. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. And are they still doing it?
They are. When they upped it to $750, the participation from the public increased. They have a cap of $10,000, which basically makes it 13 people can participate, which is not a lot.
How much did you? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. How much did you say, Jay?
$10,000.
10,000 was the cap.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's 13 people, and they have 13 on a waiting list. So now, one thing that did come up in the conversation was with the COVID. They're running into their year goes January 1st to November 30th. And they've got some people who put in all of their information early on, all of their hours early on, they're fine. Some of the folks put in a couple of hours early on, and now that is the highest risk community
Wow.
with the COVID. So it's a real challenge.
Wow. So really, they're not going to hit probably 13 people getting the full amount this year. It's going to be kind of a bust.
Yeah, unless they decide to, if the state has granted this additional unemployment to people, is there a way for the town to kind of do that exception, knowing that there was a willingness to volunteer, but just an inability? So she said they're going to talk about that at their next town council meeting. So.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then you weren't able to talk to Sterling or Pittsfield?
Right. So email went out to Jack, and a voicemail was left for Kama. So that's where I'm at.
All right.
Jay, I wasn't able to hear what community you did. I was having audio problems. What community did you speak with?
Norwood.
Norwood. Thank you.
And I'll tell you, the person that heads up that program in Norwood started as a senior volunteer in the work-off program in a different department. And HR saw what she was doing, and they said, we got to have you. And she said, well, you got to tell the department head, because I don't want to jump ship after getting this tax abatement. And so it's great. She does her hours for the first couple of months of the year, and then she switches over to an hourly employee for the remainder of the year. Yeah.
That's a sweet gig.
Yeah.
Do you know, Jay, if this department is aligned to the Council on Aging, or where do they fit in the city? Did they mention that?
It's straight through the HR department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they made that work.
Okay.
And HR works with the department heads to come up with the job descriptions. And I asked her, that golden nugget question do you have seniors that come to you with, hey, I can do X, Y, or Z? She had a great example of that. They have it on their application. She says, I need to rework the application because it says, do you bring any special skills? And that doesn't really get people thinking about what they can really do. So she wants to really work that in a way that it can really, get people to say, oh, I could. So I actually planted that seed with her. So that some good is going to come out of this.
Good.
But they've got somebody who is a retired engineer, and for the planning department to get a certified engineer at minimum wage is, I mean, it's a huge benefit to the town.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. I'm taking notes on the spreadsheet here. Okay. Anything else, Jay, before we move to the next?
The other thing that she did say is that they are working, council is working right now to add a disabled portion to it. So that I wonder, it looks a little murky in the writing of the law. There are a couple of the other communities that have done that have afforded this to both seniors and disabled. And she said, yeah, I'm not working on that. I just know that we're trying to do that. So
I think there already is. Maybe. Is there a disabled?
There is for a disabled senior.
Yes.
To have somebody work on their behalf.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Whether or not a disabled person could reduce their taxes.
Like a proxy kind of thing.
Yeah, a proxy is, yes. Is that what you were talking about, Jay? Was the proxy?
Well,
or rewriting this to, I think it might take legislative authority to expand beyond seniors.
I agree with that, but there is a town, and I think in the Google Docs I had put, well, I had sent to Peg, and then she magically did the Google Docs thing. There is a town that does have that.
Yeah, and I want to say
and certain towns may take
Middleton. I think it's Middleton.
Some liberties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or maybe they just know something that we don't know. That's fine.
I mean, I think it's a component of it. I think it may be not strictly written into the MGL, but right. I feel like it's allowable to do a proxy. But
that is written into the MGL to have a
is it? Somebody else work for you.
A volunteer in your stead. Yeah. But
a volunteer for a senior disabled person or someone not able to do the work otherwise. Yes,
correct.
That is in the legislation.
Yeah. But you're saying, but to create so that someone who is disabled can go in and do the volunteer work themselves is a separate carve out.
That's a little
under the age of 60.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But the conversation around getting a proxy, I said, so how does that work? And she said, well, it hasn't yet. But my thought is, and tell me if I'm making things too confusing here, but wouldn't it be great if we made that an option of, there are a lot of young professionals in town, and to put it out there to say, hey, you can volunteer X amount of hours to the city, and it's gonna I can see that being a huge, there being a will, you know? People just want to help other people, and that's a beautiful thing.
Kind of like
That
banking.
makes a lot of sense. That sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're going to create a cap, we're going to create a maximum amount. So it almost doesn't matter who's doing it for the benefit of the seniors. It's, you know, $10,000 is $10,000 and or 20 or whatever we end up doing. But I like that because, you know, a lot of folks who need it could get their son or their grandson, or there could be, to your point, Jay, a community of people who work it and bank the hours, and then the senior goes in and they get the benefit of it, and that would be kind of cool.
I'd love to see us do that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Wow, you got a lot for just one person.
It's quality, not quantity.
Who wants to go next? Joe.
I'll go next. One question for Jay, though. Did you wrote this up and put it onto the Google Docs, right?
I took some notes on the Google Docs thing, and then I printed it out because I apparently am 106 years old and I don't know how to do this kind of stuff.
But I will tell you, right now, as you guys are talking, I'm filling in the Google Doc. I just downloaded it. I have it. I've taken all the notes, Jay, that you just gave me. So I'm going to do that as we go through this. So it's getting captured on the Google Doc.
That is terrific. Thank you so much.
Sheets or whatever we're calling it. Okay, go Joe.
Okay, I did 3 of them. I did Natick, Framingham, and Wellesley. So the question is, where would you like to start?
Oh, let's start at Wellesley, because come on, why not?
There were some things, because I talked to all 3 of these towns, and there were some things in common that all of them had in common. So let me just sort of cover that.
Okay.
It appears the Council on Aging is one of the primary organizations. In fact, I think in Framingham and Natick, it was basically the Council on Aging runs the program. So it's like the deputy manager, deputy director of the Council on Aging, who's the key person in both Natick and Framingham. That person had somewhat of an HR background. So when it came to getting all the applications in, especially from the seniors, you know, they would take all that information in, and then they would, you know, look at what sort of jobs they had available and then do the preliminary match. And then in most cases, that send the individual over to the hiring manager or whatever department they thought they would be best able to, you know, where the skills match was best. And then the volunteer would go to that department and, you know, sit down with the hiring manager, and it was that person who would make the final call on whether they came in or not. So it's like in Natick and Framingham, that person sort of functioned like an HR person. The person in Wellesley, who is also like the assistant director of the Council on Aging out there, happens to be a social worker. So she did the same sort of matching, you know, with the applications coming in, but she sort of looked at it from a little more of a behavioral aspect, like that.
Okay.
Okay, let me just talk a little bit about Wellesley. One of the questions, or one of the issues is, like, some of these folks haven't been in their positions very long. So when I asked them, when did the program start, they drew a blank. They said they weren't sure. They thought it was somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago, which would probably put it in the 2005-2010 timeframe.
Okay.
Okay. In Wellesley, in addition to the Council on Aging, apparently the assessor's office is heavily involved in the mechanics of the program, but I suspect they're more looking at making sure that the the money and the hours are correctly recorded, and the people who do the work, get the appropriate, the money off their taxes. And the other thing, in Wellesley, the lady said that that they never max out, that apparently they can have up to like 15 applications, but that during her time there, they've never maxed that out to the point where they had more applications than they had money for people to do that work.
So are you saying, Joe, that they are funded for 15, but they never hit 15, or they
Yes.
didn't know what the cap was? Okay, so it's 15 is their cap.
Yeah, that's
They
what she
just
said.
never get there.
And actually, the situation in Wellesley, which I didn't find anywhere else, is in some cases you've got both the husband and the wife who are doing the volunteering. So in one case, they count the number of volunteers, but should sort of go back and forth between the number of volunteers, the number of parcels that they were working with. So if they had, in some case they had 8 different properties and 12 volunteers, where some of those were husband and wives working together. In terms of some of the stuff that these people did, sort of along the line with what Jay was talking about, there was they have a municipal power source in Wellesley, and they got a retired electrical engineer to come in and work for the power source. And so they thought for minimum wage, it was pretty good that they were getting a high-powered guy like that.
Seriously, it's great.
Some of the other, apparently because of the nature of the people who live in Wellesley, apparently they're teachers or they have a lot of skills. There's a lady who's teaching French at the Council on Aging, and so that was her volunteer job. And somebody else who was talking about international affairs or something like that.
Wow.
So, and they also have people working in more usual places, like at the Council on Aging, the library, and they had some people working at the town hall, but apparently there were stairs and there were some mobility issues with somebody. So in general, the departments are pretty much satisfied with the work that the volunteers do, and the volunteers, most of they also get a sense of purpose from the volunteer work, but she said that some of the volunteers can be particular, and in terms of maybe, I won't repeat that. But in Wellesley, the current maximum reduction in property tax is $1,500. So I think that comes up to somewhere around 125 hours.
And you said that they had about 15 people that was their max on that?
15 maximum, and she said like this year they had 12. There were 8 properties and 12 volunteers associated with those. So
so even if they had 15 volunteers, if 8 of those volunteers were married, they would only count, would they still count as 8 volunteers? They're only talking about number of abatements that they'd be given.
Well, that was something that I didn't clarify at the time. I probably should have. But it almost sounded like that both the husband, especially given the nature of Wellesley, that both the husband and the wife were getting, were getting the abatement. And I think Wellesley was one of them where they also permitted proxies, other people to come in, and it's usually, I think she said it was usually relatives, like maybe a younger son or something like that. So
I like that. Okay.
So every apparently some of the work it tends to be pretty I don't want to say boring, but, you know, it's like stuffing envelopes, or somebody goes through the library and makes sure all the books are in the proper order. So, but the people seem to enjoy, you know, doing the work. In terms of the one piece of advice about starting or running the program, she said it's really important to do the marketing piece and to really talk this up among, you know, with the department heads and with the mayor, you know, keep it on their radar screens. And, you know, it's, you know, the department heads are the people who provide the job. So, you know, she said it's important to keep touch with them. And she thought it was also somebody paints fire hydrants for the fire department, and also making sure that house identifiers, the numbers are visible, so that if they have to call, you know, the fire department or the ambulance, you know, they can, you know, pull up at the right house. But anyway, basically I typed up something more formal and put it on the Google Docs. So,
Okay.
So anyway, that was basically the situation in Wellesley.
Anything different with, or dramatically different with Natick and or Framingham?
Not really. I think they were sort of like a hierarchy of, you know, Wellesley being really wealthy and Framingham, Natick being a little more, you know, middle class, and Framingham's a city in a state of, you know, apparently a lot of demographic changes are taking place. And let me just talk a little bit about the guy in Framingham.
Okay.
Again, he said that it's really important to get to the hiring managers, and he said 95% of the time people are satisfied, and in some cases, you know, the fit doesn't quite work. So,
did either Natick or Framingham give you a sense as to the dollar amount, or were they all 1,500 like Wellesley?
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. And there's also a financial thing that came through. Framingham, it was like $1,000 maximum credit. And I guess, you know, people would work 78 hours and get the 1,000. And I think I said Wellesley was 1,500.
Right.
And that was about 125 hours. Now, I don't know how Natick does it, but Natick gives, it's 1,593, which is a little
I think that accommodates some taxes or something.
Something could be. And so,
in other words, I think what they're paying is the taxes that would typically come out, payroll taxes of some sort.
Right, because it sounds like the law requires up to $1,500, but then the law doesn't speak to who pays the taxes on the money. So if you get $1,593, that's a very creative way of kind of increasing this just a little bit. Yeah. Great catch, Peg.
Yeah. Cool.
You know, one of the things, it seems like each of the three towns, you know, Natick, Framingham, and Wellesley, they all handle the paperwork, the financial stuff a little bit differently. In Wellesley, I asked about like 1099s, and she said that they don't bother with that they just let it go. So, but in Wellesley, she said they consider people to be independent contractors, and they're pretty straight in saying that they're not town employees. Mm-hmm. And in let's see who else was in Natick. Apparently, Natick they treat people as independent contractors. They do get 1099s. And that's probably why you know, they get the 1593. In Framingham, I think let me see what I think they considered the volunteers to be temporary employees. So apparently you can do some different things. They said there was a small OBRA deduction, which is apparently something that's required of employees. So.
Oh, the retirement thing?
Yeah, he said the $1,000 comes out to be, you know, actual 910, because people are required to, you know, there's a small Medicare deduction, and they have to put in money into this OBRA.
They do that for city councilors too, and we will never see it again.
Okay.
Inside baseball. Jay, did you have a question? I thought I saw you. No? Yes?
Well, just the $93 is 6.2%, which would be the employee contribution for the Social Security and Medicare, but it doesn't make any sense that they would be withholding Social Security and Medicare. I think it's just somebody's program doesn't know where to click something.
The fact that all three towns are doing something different,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we'll have to verify, once we get there, we'll have to kind of verify with the city attorney, like if we're violating any major law. But that's cool.
Is there, I mean, I can go over some more of this stuff, but I mean, the bottom line, the most important thing was marketing the program, and then, you know, keeping in touch with the department heads, and, you know, maintaining those good connections. And the second piece is functioning as the HR, you know, the incoming HR office, you know, for the applications. And the guy in Framingham said he also spends or takes every opportunity to go out among the citizens of the town and talk about the different programs, you know, this program and other programs that people can use. He said there are situations in Framingham where, you know, they're pretty well-to-do neighborhoods, but, you know, the people have gotten older. Maybe one of the spouses has passed away, and, you know, so people are having some issues in, you know, trying to make their taxes. So, and again, with all three of these, I put them up on the Google Docs. So
Great.
You know, it should be a little bit, hopefully, easier. Okay, that's.
Did you create like a folder for just that city?
I think I just uploaded the documents individually, because I just had like one for, you know, I didn't upload any brochures, not for those guys, but it's standalone docs.
And so I'll pause here for 1 second. Is everyone comfortable getting into the Google Drive and looking at the Google Docs? So you're pretty, I mean, I don't want, because if there's stuff out there that you can't get to, then we'll just shoot it over to you. But anyone feeling less comfortable? JP?
I'm experimenting with it.
You had a grin on your face, so
because
like,
I'm just experimenting. And
well, you know, like I said, just don't not read it. If you can't get to it, just let me know or Joe know, and we can get it over to you. It just, I think initially, because we were going to have so many working documents, this felt like a good way to do it. But we also want you to see the information. So
it's a good thing to study and
teachable moment.
I'm more familiar with. Very useful tool.
Okay. All right. And if you need any help, Joe knows all about it. He can help you.
I will struggle with you as we find the way.
We'll find the path. Okay. Great. Anything else, Joe, before we move on?
No, nothing jumps out at me.
Okay. Brendan.
Yeah. Can you?
Hi, Brendan.
Can everybody hear me?
Just barely. Speak.
Can you hear me now?
I'll turn up my thing.
Maybe I should just unplug from the headset. Hold on 1 second.
It's now really loud when you...
Okay.
There, much better.
That's much better.
That's better.
Okay. All right. I tried the headset, but that's obviously not going to work today. All right, so I had Chelmsford, Holyoke, and I did Lincoln before, we had towns assigned to us. I just randomly picked off the list several weeks ago. So to kind of give a breakdown, Chelmsford has a senior population of about 4,000 senior. And much like Joe said, you're going to hear a lot of similarities, with the COAs that I interviewed, for this project. But anyway, Chelmsford has 150 positions.
What did you repeat that?
Wow.
Did I hear 150?
150 positions total.
Wow.
Of course, COVID has totally cut into a huge chunk of these positions, but right before COVID hit, they were running strong at 150. So they have a very, very strong program. Their community clearly supports it. Now,
what's the dollar amount, Brendan?
So the dollar amount, let's see here.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Let's see here. Where did I have that? Just one second. Oh, it's $1,000 per household.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that, I had asked, and this kind of came up, this is a common theme amongst most of the COAs, but I'm assuming because they're not dealing with the part that the treasurer has to deal with, maybe they're not seeing documentation like the treasurer would. But overall, I think nobody was, complaining about, an overload of documentation for doing W-2s and 1099s. So I don't think I heard any of that from the 3 COAs that I interviewed. I feel like they, that the documentation was pretty well managed. I think the key thing amongst all the COAs, and again, this is similar for all 3 communities that I'm going to talk about, is that each COA specifically designated a committee to handle this program, to kind of administer it. So everything from interviewing potential candidates or people who are applying, to tracking volunteer hours, and then following up with department heads to see whether or not it was appropriate fit. So that is a common thread between all 3 communities. So I think I can see it, when we develop a program, the COA will have to really hone in, and maybe the COA board will start, looking at different ways of being able to administer the program. So I think that's totally common practice. So I agree with Joe. That is something that we just see over and over again when we interview the COAs.
And Brendan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah. So this committee, is this committee of like people who are employed by the COA, so this is now a part of their job, or are these volunteer committees?
So it was a combination of, so they actually, in one of the communities, they took someone and assigned them as a volunteer coordinator, and I think they were working through the program themselves, but they were overseeing the record keeping and the interviewing.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of an interesting concept. And I think, I know that Westfield kind of had a strong position where they're not, I believe it was Westfield, where they're not using their volunteers at the center. But I found in
right.
all 3 communities that I spoke with that they were, definitely had, if not half of the applicants working, or the half of the candidates working at the COA. I mean, it was just something that, everything from reception to, like I said, volunteer coordinating, all the way to gardening. So I think, I kind of thinking about it, I'm like, wow, I could fill so many positions myself just at the center. So many possibilities. But anyway, so I think one thing that they had mentioned to me at Chelmsford was, as far as advice goes, they had said, the thing that they struggled with is once you find the perfect fit, they said just be cautious because, you rely on that individual so much, and then they end up leaving, and they had such highly qualified candidates that they considered a major disadvantage once, that person was done with their time. However, a lot of communities, or a lot of COAs rather, ended up getting lifelong volunteers, even after the person, worked at the center and they were no longer receiving the property tax reduction. So I think that's interesting too. That could create wonderful volunteer opportunities for the senior center, or maybe other departments within the city. So that was something to be noted. But they just said, if should that come up, just be prepared that if you lose a very strong candidate or, a worker, that it could be a blow to your department or someone else's department. So I think the consistency was something that they were a little bit concerned about. But other than that, overwhelmingly, the town supports this, and to them, it was a win-win for Chelmsford.
That is great.
Brendan, may I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So I heard that the departments could be very disappointed after having good volunteers and good matches. And when somebody leaves, sometimes they might stay unpaid. And I will make a special note of that. I think that should be part of our report.
Right.
But the thought was, did you happen to ask if there are more applicants than the 150 positions that are filled? Because it sounds like folks likely would be coming back if they're healthy. So
let me see. I don't know. Let me just check really quickly in my notes.
I would think that somebody would, if they're having a good time and it's a good match, and why not try to continue unless they put some sort of restriction or there aren't enough positions for people.
So when I spoke with their director, we didn't get into numbers necessarily, but she did tell me that they usually have different applicants each year. So, and that when they can't fill all 150 positions with new applicants, they'll go back and look at, people who were served under the program the year previous, and
right.
they'll include them. So I think if they fall short of filling all the 150 positions that are out there in Chelmsford, they at the very least will go back, and the COA will reach out to people who, and I know that that's the case with one of the other COAs in the research that I did, that they did a lottery system for people.
Right.
So that it wasn't just like, oh, we really love this volunteer, and they finally select the people that they want out of the previous year. I think to make it equitable, they decided to do a lottery system. So they said, oh, okay, we filled 115 positions with new applicants. The rest we're going to do, a lottery system and contact people who were serving previously,
Sounds good. Thank you. By the way, if you hear a giggle every once in a while, it's me, and I just keep giggling when you talk about 150 or 115 or maybe 90, only 95.
I know. And I unfortunately, I didn't ask the director because we kind of had to end the conversation as to what their strategy was. I don't know if it was publicity or there's just a strong need for financial support in Chelmsford, although, it seems like it's a pretty well-off community. But either way, they seem to, just the number alone, 150 is something. Because when I talk about Holyoke, we're talking about 5,000, it's 5,000 difference in population. So if Chelmsford at 35, Holyoke's at 30, 30,000. And Holyoke only has 30 positions. So, that just goes to show you from one community to the next what you're dealing with. So Holyoke has 30 positions, and they say they fill them every year. But if we're talking about a difference of 5,000 people, roughly, that's a huge,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's it's also not for nothing, but $150,000. That's a lot of tax levy that everyone else has to bear, because it doesn't go away. We're going to end up subsidizing these folks, right? Because we're not going to have them pay taxes. So that's a lot. Like, they must really be well off. Which is lovely that those who have are supporting the people who have not. So that is really nice, but it's a big number. Are we moving into Holyoke? Because I was going to ask you what the dollar amount in Holyoke was.
Yeah, Holyoke has got $750.
Okay. And how about, did you do Lincoln? Why do I have your name next to Lincoln?
Yeah, what about Lincoln?
Yeah, I randomly did that. I kind of went ahead a little bit earlier than this whole process, started. I kind of jumped ahead and started doing that before we agreed to get into this. So let's see here. What do they have? I have it here somewhere in my stack of papers. Hang tight, I'll try to locate that. I have it somewhere among.
Because I would expect Lincoln to be very much like Wellesley in that. Because that's a pretty wealthy community as well.
Right, and they have, so this is the thing with Lincoln, is that they only have 6,000, roughly 6,300 for a population, not seniors. I didn't get the total number on seniors, but they have 48 participants. So
wow,
for a small community, that's quite a bit. I mean, that's not even coming close to touching Chelmsford's population.
So
what's the dollar amount that they give them?
Wow.
So we're talking about Lincoln?
Yeah.
So I think right here I have 1,000. They're also one of the communities that, let's see here. Oh, sorry, it's 1,500 for seniors and 1,000 for veterans, because they're one of the communities that combines both.
Oh, okay.
So, but according to them, you can actually double up, which is an interesting thing if you're a senior and a vet.
Yeah. Which
is something I don't think I've seen with any other community. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think you can take the, if you qualify, you can stack them. I think you can.
One quick piece of advice that Holyoke had given me, though, that I think is worth noting, they said they hadn't really written this into the program, and they said it may be worthwhile to think about, is drawing a clear distinction on like the household and eligibility. So she was saying if you have multiple people in one household, is your community going to allow for multiple people in one household to be eligible for the senior tax work-off program? And then also home ownership and all of that. So they had said, to keep that in mind when, drafting something up. So for what that's worth.
I believe it's by property. So a piece of taxable property is like unless they're all working toward the same amount, piece of property, and if we go the route of husband and wife can work off toward the same, but like a husband can't do 1,500 and the wife do 1,500 if they live in the same house. It's 1,500 for the property. Okay. Who and how many people do it could be kind of.
Maybe that's what the distinction was, is that if it was maybe a married couple can both be applying for the same benefit because they both have equal ownership in the house.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's probably something to think about. There's all this nuance that, when you're considering this type of program, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's all part of the marketing too. We have to be really clear about what people are working off and kind of show, we have to draw that line so that they can follow it, as opposed to, boy, I've got 5 people in my house. We're all going to work and get 1,500 times 5. Well, no.
Right. I think, what was I going to say? I had something in my head. Just lost it. All right. Well, I'll come back to it maybe at some point. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so they had 48, and you talked to all the COAs, so all these are administered by COAs?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it came down to usually like the max a 5-person committee, kind of like what we have now, if you will. But that was directly under the COA. So the director, at the end of the day was completely responsible for any, issues that would pop up with the volunteers and department heads, but there were many working parts. She had, the volunteer coordinators, and then people, working with department heads to create job descriptions. And so it seemed like, all COAs kind of had at least between 3 to 5 people on a committee. So,
And did I hear you say that committee in and of itself could be people working off their taxes by administering a program that works off taxes?
Lincoln certainly identified as having someone in the program working on the program.
I mean, why not?
I mean, again, it makes sense to me, but I don't know, I mean, I'm sure they, looked at rules and regulations surrounding this, but I mean, if that's possible, that would be great.
I know, right? It'd be wonderful.
Especially on my end,
Yeah. Cool. Great. Anything else before we move to JP?
Yeah, that was the thing I was thinking of. I know one of the questions that kept coming up through our meetings was whether or not it was a struggle for department heads. Lincoln was the only one that said that it was like, kind of pulling teeth at times to establish, job descriptions and positions for people. But other than that, most of the directors that I spoke with, the two other directors I spoke with rather, had nothing but good words to say about it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the writing of job descriptions and all of that is going to be something that will need to be very clearly defined so that the department heads don't feel overburdened. It has to be a pretty simple process, because who wants to write job descriptions? Exactly no one. So that will be probably a challenge. And the simpler we can make it, the better, I suppose. Okay, thanks, Brendan.
Cool.
JP?
I had gone over the report of the communities Greenfield, Middleborough, and Mansfield at the last meeting. So my task this time was to see what I could do to get a hold of Jeff Bagg, who was to ask him about any funding sources. And he sent back a nice letter and basically had directed us to some websites for the for the state that talk about possibilities for funding. But they're very broad and not very specific to what we're doing. So it's going to require some additional effort to kind of pour through that data and information to see if there's anything there that can be helpful. What is interesting, Brendan, is your Chelmsford report. And with Chelmsford, if they have $150,000, I wonder if they're getting some funding somewhere else. I wonder if it's worth pursuing. I certainly think it's worth pursuing to try to thresh that out. I'd be happy to try to follow up on that if you're too busy to, but if you're able to, that I think would be really good to kind of figure out if there are some additional funding sources besides the municipality and the tax levy. So you could think about that. I think with Jeff, he also alluded to the possibility, and this kind of stretched out of the box thinking here with regard to the CPA. And if we're talking about affordable housing generally affordable housing is one of the CPA criteria. And generally, we think of affordable housing as producing additional units under their strict guidelines for affordable housing. But I don't know, it's probably worth pursuing to think about if some CPA money could be used in this process. So that's another kind of angle on this. I'm not altogether clear that we'd want to use CPA funds or whether they'd be appropriate, but a few conversations with the CPA people, I think can help talk about that idea if the city finds that it's not able for any reason to even come up with a small pilot program on its own. So there are some other options. There also, with regard to community development block grant funds, there didn't seem to be any money that Jeff could see, being the city planner, to use to offset program funds, because you would want them to be sustainable in the future. And generally community grant funds, he kind of implied they're kind of like one-time monies. So they may be able to be used should we have to do some have some administrative costs to bear for rewriting our computer programs should we happen to have to deal with deductions. So I think that was pretty much the entire report from Jeff. Yep.
Okay. And you said you have given us all the information around Mansfield and
Greenfield and Middleborough.
Marlborough.
Yeah, it's in the written report for the minutes.
Yep. And so we're good.
I was really pretty detailed about that. Yep. I kind of saw the minutes as helping us for that and for the report today to kind of help to pull together various sections of our report, because we'll be, I imagine we'll be using a section about what some of the other communities are doing, how it's operating, and then kind of that becomes a section of the report. Mm-hmm. So I tried to kind of write the minutes as if this were kind of getting that a bit of the report behind us, in addition to the other communities we were learning about.
Okay. Good deal. Joe.
I think we're coming up toward the end. I've got 5 minutes left.
Yep.
I guess I'm sort of wondering what are our next steps in and when do we take them and who does them?
You, because you asked the question.
Okay.
Get to do it all.
Penalty for...
I think we have a couple of things. JP, I would like to get the answer to that CBA question. So if you can reach out to Dan Rist and maybe he can direct you. I don't know if we would need to formally go to a CPA meeting and make the request, or if we can have offline conversations.
I think it's even beyond that. I think we're into like the legal questions of the CPA. So I was envisioning contacting the folks I know on the CPA, on the committee that does the website for the CPA for the state, and they monitor all the programs across the state and really got a handle on what each community is doing.
Yeah,
and I think they're the ones who might have some better read on this or be able.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there's a guy.
But practically, we would certainly have to go to the CPA. That have to be something that they would want to do,
right,
et cetera.
Yeah. And
we'd also have to make a decision to have a certain, we'd have to make the decision to have a certain segment or the entire program be eligible for the affordable housing, however we would define it. So lots of questions on that.
Yeah, I think the first question is, can we even do anything with, like how would it get broken down, and is it even doable? And then, but I'll put your name next to just kind of figuring that out.
Thank you.
What I will do, I think, is kind of distill this information into kind of a chart, so we can kind of see, like, based on columns and things like that, because this is how my brain thinks. Similar, like the number of people, the number of dollars, the lessons learned, the challenges, all that kind of stuff. Get that into a workable document that's easy to digest. And then we can kind of go from there. I think our next step is to start creating that straw man document of what will this look like? What are the sections of the report, to your point, JP? And then how and who will help fill those things. And did anybody get any sort of, I think, Joe, I feel like you got some sort of a document from one of your people last year that kind of spoke to the presentation or the organization of it, something like that?
Yeah, I spoke to Tina Gorman in Westfield. It was back in, I think it was January or February, and she provided me a set of documents, which I think they may already be up on the in the Google.
I think they are.
Google Drive. I know I sent sent a copy of that stuff I think I put it up there and then sent Jen an email because she said she was going to do Westfield. Yep. But yes, we do have a whole set of documents that would serve as a template, if you will.
Okay. I am happy to kind of distill that down as well, and kind of get us ready for the next meeting. To that end, someone had mentioned that we had talked about having a meeting next week as well, when we were going to have one last week, separating by 2 weeks. Do we still want to do that? Do we want to have one in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks?
Yeah, like have them twice a month instead of once a month.
Yeah, because the timeline is coming up here, right? Yeah. I mean, the idea was that, what was it, by November or December we were going to have some type of...
perhaps a draft by the end of November and a report out sometime in December.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, so my preference is that we not meet the week of City Council, which is the week of October 7th and the week of October, well, not of, but October 7th and October 21st are City Council weeks. So the week of the 12th or the week of the 26th, I mean, both of those weeks, would those work for you guys? And what is today? Today's Wednesday. Do Wednesdays
Wednesday the 23rd.
Or Thursdays or?
Thursdays worked better for me.
Okay. Anyone else preference one way or the other? No.
I've got 2 weeks notice. I'm set.
Occasionally on a Wednesday, I might have something, but it's like it won't happen for a while. So either day would work probably just as well.
Okay.
Equally as well.
Okay. I'm going to go with Thursday because I just remembered on off weeks, we have our finance committee meeting on Wednesday. So we'll go with Thursday if you guys are good. Why don't we, what's today? 1, 2. Oh, that's
23rd.
1, 2. So that'll be 3 weeks from tomorrow. Are we good with that? Or do we want to meet sooner?
Well, I guess it depends for me. Like, do you guys, are we going to break off and do something like we did from the last meeting, like do our own assignment, if you will? Or are we going to wait until a few weeks out from now to discuss strategy?
I guess one question I have, we talked about speaking to department heads, and are we not at the point where that might be a beneficial thing?
I think we're at the point where it would be a beneficial thing.
Okay. Do we all do that, or we each take a department head and execute a full court press, or?
I think it would make sense for us. So what I will do is I'm going to ask the mayor if I can go to her leadership call that she has weekly with all the department heads, and I will do a little riff on this and what they can expect in terms of us reaching out to them, the kind of information we might be looking for. You know, if they want no part of this whatsoever, we'll take them off the list, because we don't really want to talk to people who are just not going to even want to participate. But I think maybe that's, the next, let me do that. And I'll try to get on her agenda for next week, I think.
Could you maybe email, should this be in the affirmative and there be folks we could call and reach out to, is it possible we could pick departments from a site and then have already in the interim before our next meeting had a chance to interview those department heads? You know, I think we have enough with the COA and the treasurer's office to set up a pilot program. If we were able to get even one other department or two departments, I really think that in the end would give us something to get off the ground with. Right.
I agree. So let me find out from the mayor. Let me speak to the department heads and just say, hey, here's the deal. And then ask them to kind of either on that call or to email me, or we'll just reach out to them regardless of whether they want to express an interest. Maybe we just send we just pick a few of them that look amenable to us. I know there's some that are not going to want to participate.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That puts us into like October 14th, right? Or something like that. I just got the email today.
For the leadership call?
Yeah.
When is it? The October 14th?
I had to double check my email, but it just came out this morning, and I'm certain they always happen on Wednesdays. They haven't been happening as frequently, but I think that's the next one. But I'll email you, Peg, when I look at the email. I think it's October 14th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's not going to work because we want to kind of get to everybody sooner. I thought
find out now. Let's just see here. Yeah, October 14th, 10 a.m.
Okay.
So.
All right. So.
Does anyone have a list of departments we could maybe break up and?
Yeah. Well, there is a whole distribution list of all of the department heads, and here's the thing. I am cautious about just reaching out to them without giving it some sort of introduction, because
probably very good counsel.
We don't have time. They'll just be like, get away from me. So let me think about that. I might reach out to the mayor and see what would make the most sense. But I think minimally some sort of email to all of them, and then tell them that, we may have folks reaching out to them asking, maybe I give them a couple of questions we might be asking, and then just a general conversation around their thoughts about this. We can intro the program to them when we talk to them, and then kind of take it from there. But yeah, I agree. We need to get this out sooner rather than later. So I have so the rest of this week I might be able to do it.
If after consulting with the mayor and maybe drafting a letter to the various departments, you'd like us to reach out, I certainly would be happy to do so. If you would email us or email me, I would take on whatever tasks you would give me. So I don't know if others would be willing to do the same, but I think we should try to have something kind of prepared for the 14th. And you said, if I heard correctly, you were going to kind of give an outline of what the document will look like.
Yes.
And I think we'll be in good shape for the 14th then.
Yeah. So I'll kind of get all that stuff put together and then push it out to us so that we're all talking from the same sheet of paper kind of thing.
Sure.
And that we kind of know. But as I say that, all of you can come back and go, this is not great. I was going to say something else. This is not great. So, do your own suggestions and things. This is just a jumping off point. And then, so I'll kind of work on that. I'll talk to the mayor. I'll let you know what I come up with. JP, you'll talk to CPA people, just high level. Is this even doable? Are we not even, should we not even be doing it? And then we can start those phone calls and emails and conversations. And then next time we meet, JP, if you could share it, and then we'll see from there where we need to go with this. I'll do the Zoom. I'm happy to coordinate the agenda with Barbara and all of that, but someone running it would be good. That make sense?
Sounds good.
Any last words?
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. We'll take a voice vote. Jay?
Aye.
Aye. Joe?
Aye.
Brendan?
Aye.
JP?
I'd like to thank everyone very much and vote aye.
I vote aye as well. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and look in your emails because stuff is going to be coming.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.